Текущее время. Сейчас как бы PM и after. Я не помню, как правильно-то. Ну, можно было бы в простом значении. Ну, допустим, сейчас 8 часов. Ну вот окей, допустим. After midnight и PM это... Погодите-ка, что? Пока не начали, могу я кое-что сказать. Спасибо, что правильно выставили время оба раза, что запускали игру. Многие относятся к этому как-то несерьезно, оставляют часы на 12:00 и торопятся дальше. А вы потратили время, чтобы выставить часы, и я это ценю. Это говорит мне о том, что вы играете внимательно, что для вас важны детали. А я ведь даже не знаю, правильно ли вы время выставили. Хорош. Знаете что? Давайте договоримся. Я вам так доверяю, что при следующем запуске игры просто выставите на экране свое любимое время. Выбирайте любое время, даже если оно неправильное, вы заслужили. А теперь можно вернуться к игре. Хорош. Итак. Всем привет, меня зовут Дмитрий, это канал Чела с банальным ником. Как ты мог заметить, меня игра охренительно потроллила. Я не знаю, есть ли у нее русский язык. Если есть, хорошо, если нету, плохо, но ничего страшного. Мы будем играть в эту игру. Начинаем. Вот такие дела. Мне посоветовали, и я решил поиграть.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Окей, она на английском.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Круто. Она на английском с
And then
озвучкой.
one day, something very peculiar happened.
Stanley Parable.
Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Так, что ж, тогда пошли, получается. Окей, без
All of
проблем.
his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Окей, не проблема. Пошли. Так, допустим, я не играл в игру Stanley Parable, поэтому
When Stanley came to a set of two open
я не
doors,
знаю, в чем
he
прикол
entered
этой
the
игры.
door on his left.
Так, левая, вот сюда. Допустим. Хорошо. Конференц-зал.
Yet there was not a single person here either.
Ага.
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Поехали к боссу, ладно.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Без проблем, погнали. Здрасте. Есть кто? Нету.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Не, ну как бы я могу ввести этот код, да?
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs.
Да.
Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Давай. 8 2 8 4 5
2845. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Ого. Окей, давай, погнали. Я знаю, в чем прикол игры, и надо бесить ну, типа, диктора. В этом весь смысл игры, потому что тут куча концовок и многое другое.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Ну, погнали, узнаем ответ. Вау. Я могу вернуться обратно, но мне это...
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape? Ну, пошли. Escape, побег. Ага. Допустим. Здравствуйте. Кто бы ни был.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Ну, пошли узнаем, без проблем.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Так, 457. Employed. О, вот это мой номер, да? Наблюдали за мной. Ну, погнали.
This mind control facility,
типа, это
it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Блин, мне так прикалывает это.
No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Понял, мы их отключим. Я не знаю, тут концовок много, поэтому off. Пускай. Будем действовать по зову диктора, а потом, так и быть, мы немножечко убежим от правильных последовательностей.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved.
Но это мы узнаем потом.
Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him.
Согласен.
For it was not knowledge or even power that he had
Давай,
been seeking,
открывайся, ну.
but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Так, отлично. Мы освободились. Четко. Игра пройдена. Довольно просто. Так. Допустим, ладно.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
О, я погасил компьютер. Ну, допустим. В этот раз мы можем выбрать правую сторону, либо... Input Receiver. Интересно. Сейчас все закрыто. Окей. Так, ну пошли.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Окей, без проблем. Пошли в левую дверь. Агент. Будем долбиться в каждую ручку, кстати. Может, это что-то, ну, случится? Может быть, как-нибудь, и мы что-нибудь найдем?
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Так, допустим. Опа.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Так, погоди. С этой комнатой явно что-то есть.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow. Just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
А я останусь. Почему бы и нет? Хорош. О!
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet.
А что мне еще
He
делать?
wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way.
Блин, оно
As it
толстое.
is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Да, так и есть. Я просто приседаю. Полезно.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely
Я и говорить не умею,
confused.
чел, прости. Я бы объяснил, но диалог это не мое. Я приседаю,
You
физупражнения.
do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. but it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever.
Правда?
I never would have thought to mention it.
Правда, что ли? Ты правда решил, что кладовка это что-то неправильное? Не...
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path.
Возможно.
Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
Хорош. Давай, ну.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Ни хера, неплохо так. Вот это я понимаю.
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead.
Да я еще
They
живой.
have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Мне интересно, я буду тут стоять до тех пор, пока, пока он что-нибудь не скажет. Или все? Или не все? Ладно.
Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you.
Ну, я бы посомневался в этом.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ну, пошли. Ого, ну это потом. Ого, ну это тоже потом. Это что-то новое.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an
Снова?
indication of any human life.
Ну да, точно.
What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on
Поехали,
the
ладно.
keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Погнали. Следующая концовка будет, наверное, заключаться в том, что мы не убежим, а попробуем включить аппарат контроля и что-то еще сделать с этим. Да. Можно, конечно, еще уехать наверх, кстати. Ради
Stanley
интереса.
walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control
Escape.
Facility.
Мы все это знаем, как бы.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens.
Я буду
What
мышкой играть,
horrible
наверное.
secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Я могу реально мышью играть, просто... Я могу просто играть мышкой. Интересно, я могу нажимать на кнопки с помощью мыши? Да.
Now the monitors jumped to life. Their true
Мне не нужна
nature
клава.
revealed. Each bore the number of an
У меня есть
employee in the
мышь.
building. Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen. And Stanley, one of them,
Ладно, я буду клавой
eternally
играть.
monitored in this
Привычно
place
просто.
where freedom meant nothing.
Пустой звук? Согласен. И я буду королем этой...
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to
104-й
believe it
уволенный.
couldn't be true. Had Stanley
Где-то
really
баг.
been under someone's control all this time? Was this the
еще
only
было
reason he was happy with his boring job? That his
601-й.
emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life
два
in
уволенных.
someone else's control? Never. It
Never.
was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy
Там
or
кнопочки с
sad
цифрами.
or content. Walking,
1,
eating,
2.
working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Нет, в этот раз нет. Я видел концовку, я видел побег. Мы застряли в шкафу, и я, наверное, думаю, там тоже что-то будет. Как-нибудь посмотрим.
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you?
Да
After
не.
they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control?
Да.
Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are said to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say, 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left
Так,
to
нужна
enjoy it.
пятерка.
Mere moments until the bomb goes off.
Двойка.
But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me,
2.
where we're going, what all this means.
Двойка.
I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are?
2 и
A moment of
фиолетовый, да?
solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the
Неправильно.
machine. I set you free.
Так,
Of course, that was merely in
Один
this instance
красный.
of the story. Sometimes when I
Так,
tell it,
4
I
желтые,
simply
давай
let you sit
попробуем.
there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone.
жестоко.
Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp.
Бля, у меня минута
I have to
осталась.
say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. Whoa. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking.
С этим нужно как-то сделать что-то.
You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count. Or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say happily ever up.
Камон. Хотя бы это было быстро, окей? Окей. Так, ты погоди. С этим можно что-то сделать. С этим по-любому можно было бы что-то сделать.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Сбежать? Опа, еще один компьютер включился. Может быть, мне надо input нажать на всех компах? Как вариант.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Ага. Интересно. Интересно. Мы можем сейчас уйти в другую сторону.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ну давай, ладно. Пойдем сейчас по левой стороночке. Можем снова посидеть. Кстати, интересно, ну-ка, что будет?
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
О, да.
Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
No problem. Я не думал, что он среагирует. Ой, хорош. Мы не торопимся, ладно, мне тоже торопиться некуда так-то. Я думаю, тебе постоим, поприседаем. Раз, два. Ты-то хоть приседаешь, а? Я приседаю, потому что надо делать перерывы между видосами. Так что ты приседай, давай. Раз, два. Опа. Оп. Ладно, выйдем. Я думаю, если зайти сюда кучу раз подряд, то что-то интересное будет.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Я в курсе. Так, 2, 8, 4, 5, да? Давай, ради интереса, ну-ка.
The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk.
Да.
That kind of anxiety isn't healthy. so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Спешить нельзя, да? Но было интересно, так
Feeling
что...
soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Я ни хера не вижу. А если не вошел? Ладно, давай потом. Потом этим разберемся. Я думаю, 3-4 концовки мы с тобой посмотрим. Так что сейчас будем сбегать. Да, мы попытались... блин, там походу реально можно ввести пароль, чтобы уйти. И я постараюсь это сделать, но, наверное, в следующей серии.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Нет. Escape. Мы бежим.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Ничего, смерть тоже выход. Наверное.
The
Пошли.
door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Пошли.
At
Хорош.
this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Яла! Все?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss,
Nope.
like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Ну прощай, блин. Давай. Давайте, козлы. И чё?
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator,
Pardon?
as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Что? Погоди, а почему же рассказчик поменялся на женский? Стопе, what the fuck?
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Без понятия вообще.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
План офиса. Ага. Ага. Коридор изначально один и тот же, да? А все остальное... Шкафчик с бумагами всякий. Офисные компьютеры. Интересно. А это что? Это мой офис. Офис 01. 02. 03. Авторы. Я в музей попал? Ля, вот это фокус. Неждан. Офисные часики. Картины. Так,
Stanley pushed the number
Ага.
6.
Интересно.
Then he pushed the number 4.
Подземная часть. Ранняя версия подземной части игры. Ля, прикол. Кабинет начальника, он еще раз менялся. Так, погоди. А куда идти-то? Интересно. Офис. Принтер. Ага. Поле битвы. Alien Base. Поле битвы. На ранней стадии разработки мы сделали концовку, в которой Стэнли сражался с пришельцами. Игра обретала разум и начала сражаться с рассказчиком. Но мы довольно быстро поняли, что эта концовка слишком форсовая и выбивается из общей атмосферы игры. К тому же некоторые посчитали, что мы издеваемся над любителями шутеров, а мы этого не хотели. Хорош. Фан. Ага. А тут что? Джеймс, как игра? Письмо рассказчику. Ты крут. Ага. Номер 111-82800. Причем здесь это все? Так, выкатив второй трейлер, мы попросили игроков отправлять рассказчику их вопросы. Мы хотели использовать их для продвижения, но так и не придумали, как именно. Вот некоторые из этих писем. А, это письма? Посмотреть на письма, охренеть. Stanley Parable сразу нашел музей. Отсчет. Таймер в квартире. В прошлой версии концовки... Так, концовки в квартире таймер давал игроку 15 секунд, чтобы взять трубку. Если игрок не брал ее за это время, то получал другую концовку. Это что у нас? Я думаю, блин, я здесь как бы... Рычаг дзен. Тут еще и такие есть. Трейлер. Мы выпустили 4 больших трейлера в ходе разработки. Каждый из них рассказал что-то о духе игры. Ага, это первый. Он вышел в 2012. Что-то ничего нету. Ну окей. Ну типа... Лифт. Выход. Стол обратный отсчет. Стол из ранней версии концовки с отчетом. Так, ну там мы уже были. Это по сути мы что, все посмотрели? Я уверен, мы можем без всяких проблем что-то сделать. Ух ты. Так, и последнее. Кабинет Стэнли. Он менялся каждый раз. Бля, мы посмотрели про игру, музей. Я-то думал, на самом деле, это концовка типа с побегом будет. Это, оказывается, концовка музей. Концовка свобода. Это первая концовка. Из бета-версии. Ага.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free. Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time choose for you.
Да, давай, губи. Зашибись. Я решил выбрать смерть. Окей, почему бы и нет? Так, допустим.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Допустим. Компьютер. Он тут раньше был. Короче, ладно. Мы увидели много чего интересного на самом деле. Это музей. Мы увидели... Что еще мы тут увидели?
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Много чего, короче, увидели. Так что ссылочка, наверное, в плейлист будет в описании под видео. С тобой был я, Дмитрий, на канале Чела с банальным ником. Поиграем в эту игру еще потом. Не знаю, наролим еще концовок, каких только можем. А потом, когда будет много концовок, я, наверное, с гайдиком попрохожу эту игру для того, чтобы все концовки узреть. Так что все, ребят, всем удачи и всем пока.